You operate on a foundational assumption that the person you were 10 years ago is the exact same entity as the person you are today. You believe you possess a continuous identity, a unified self identical from birth to death. But under strict logical scrutiny, that persistent self shatters. In the 18th century, David Hume challenged this assumption. His work was an exercise in radical empiricism, a philosophy that subjects all claims of knowledge to a single, uncompromising test. This operating system demands strict, observable proof for every concept we hold. If a thing cannot be perceived through the senses, Hume argues it cannot be known to exist. The tension of Hume's work arises when we apply this unforgiving standard of proof not to the external world, but to our own internal identity. Under this intense scrutiny, the concept of self evaporates. This forces us to construct a model of identity that accounts for every fleeting perception without relying on an unobservable core. To understand the deduction, we start with the bedrock rule of Hume's epistemology. All valid knowledge must trace back to an original sensory impression. Hume categorized human perception into two distinct groups. The first are impressions. These are our vibrant, lively perceptions, direct sensory inputs. An impression is a sensation, a hand on a burning stove, the sharp sting of pain, or a sound. The second category are ideas. These are less lively reflections of original sensations, experienced when reflecting on that burning sensation 10 minutes later. This creates a limiting principle. If a concept cannot be traced to a specific impression, it's invalid. This is Hume's primary checkpoint. Any concept regarding human nature that cannot be traced to a specific sensory impression is logically void. This is John Locke's title page. Before Hume, Locke provided the prevailing model of identity, arguing that psychological continuity is the substance that makes us who we are. Locke's mechanism was an unbroken chain of consciousness and memory, linking your past body to your present mind. Hume countered that memory is fundamentally flawed. We have experiences we no longer remember, creating gaps in the thread. Hume's deeper objection was structural. While we perceive thoughts, we cannot perceive the consciousness holding them together. Applying the empiricist filter, Locke's model of a continuous consciousness fails, having no traceable origin in our senses. Because we can never empirically observe an underlying substance called consciousness, it cannot serve as the glue for personal identity. Hume then challenges us to look inward as intimately as possible. Try to find the central core you call yourself. In the reality of introspection, we never find a central observer. We only stumble on isolated perceptions, a moment of heat, a shiver of cold, a flicker of love, or a sting of hatred. These perceptions succeed each other in a rapid chain, but they never exist all at once. For an entity to exist as a self, it must remain precisely identical and constant over time. This is the formal premise of identity. But empirical observation reveals only fluctuating properties and no constant impression. Therefore, there is no self. Because observation reveals no underlying heseity, no unique individual essence, the concept of a unified self fails the logical test of identity. If there is no central self, what exactly constitutes a human being? Hume proposed the bundle theory, arguing we are merely a dynamic collection of loosely related individual instances of experiences. In this model, each individual self is only a fraction of a moment of time wide. These momentary experiences are joined not by a physical core, but by subjective psychological relations. These connections are forged through resemblance, closeness in space and time, or contiguity, and the relation of cause and effect. The word I is not a name for a physical object. It is simply a grammatical label applied to this series of loosely related experiences. Human identity is not a structural reality, but an optical illusion created by the rapid, overlapping succession of distinct experiences. This radical 18th century deduction mirrors a conclusion reached centuries earlier in a completely different philosophical tradition. Buddhist philosophy similarly rejects the existence of permanent elements making up a human, denying the continuity of an identical substance. Instead, it proposes the concept of the mind stream, a term that perfectly maps to Hume's bundle theory. The mind stream is a moment-to-moment continuity of awareness. It provides the function of identity without the requirement of permanence. To visualize this, consider the Buddhist metaphor of a burning candle. When you look at a flame, you see a stable shape, but the physical fuel and the energy making up the flame right now are entirely different from the material that made it up 1 second ago. It is constantly replacing itself. Like the flame, your physical and mental makeup is replaced moment to moment. The shape of your identity appears continuous to outside observers, but your substance is entirely transient. Under strict empiricism, personal identity is revealed as a functional illusion built on habit, rather than a verifiable fact. You do not own a permanent identity. You are an ever-shifting pattern of data that your mind weaves into a cohesive narrative.